Hi, everybody. Let's talk about the full moon in the sign of Scorpio. That's on April 23rd, 2024. Now, Scorpio is a very in-depth, intense, very emotional. It's a water sign, fixed water, meaning we really can get obsessed about something. When we have a full moon like this event is, it gives us an opportunity to see potentially what we are obsessing about or really focusing on, or places where we need to go deeper into our own understanding of ourselves. That's the moon, the full moon. In far as relationships, that's also the full moon. It represents relationships, the opposition of the sun and the moon in the sky. And it gives us an opportunity to evolve and transform and change, to process and to move forward in our lives in an area. The area is specific to each one of us. And since this forecast is a general forecast, you personally will have to figure out what house it's in. You know how to reach me if you need a session. But this full moon in Scorpio is incredibly intense. Pluto's the ruler of Scorpio. It is making a 90-degree angle. It's actually halfway. It's called midpoint. Pluto is halfway between the sun and the moon. Since the sun and the moon are the ones that move quicker than Pluto, we're going to say that they're halfway. They're like splitting Pluto in two. I know it sounds pretty crazy, and it is. It's intense. And then Pluto's also in a really hard aspect with Saturn. So as a preclude to what all of this represents, and I will talk about the lunar gestation cycle in this forecast as well, like I like to. Sometimes I forget, but most of the time I love to talk about it. And this one's important. This lunar gestation cycle is important because 18 months ago, and we'll get into the details of that in a minute, 18 months ago, it started with an eclipse, a solar eclipse. New moon is a solar eclipse. So April 23rd, 2024, full moon in Scorpio, thinking we're out of all of these crazy eclipses. It actually started 18 months ago with a new moon eclipse. So that's why it's super important to journal. I talked about that in the last forecast, which was April 8th solar eclipse. It gives us an opportunity to dive deep. And I want you to do that. This is what full moons in Scorpio, actually the moon in Scorpio, now it's a full moon, and it's also super energized from 18 months ago, and that was October. Here it is. I have it written down in my blogs, guys. I have a blog on my website, so go join the website. There's nothing to it. Just put your email in. I swear, I only will send you one confirmation email. I am not a funnel marketer at all. It's just me. October 25th, 2022 was a new moon solar eclipse at very similar degree that today's full moon, the full moon I'm talking about for today, April 23rd, is at. This amplifies this lunar gestation cycle. So let's get started. It's written out really well on the blog. So I'll have that up by the time this is posted, or within a day or two of this being posted, because y'all on Patreon get this first. All right, let's share the screen. Let's see if I can do that. Sometimes I show you the wrong stuff. I do have my notes back here because, yes, I use notes. I want to tell you everything I've thought about, and I've purposefully written it out, or meticulously written it out. It'll go on the blog, and I keep that up for notes. So you might see them pop up, but if you do, whoopsies. I'm going to tell you some of it, not all of it. I want you to read some of it because the details are in the written piece as well. And here I just want to riff. I like to just kind of go with what I see here and not read my forecast. You can read the forecast. I don't like to read the forecast. I think it's annoying when people do that, but that's just me. All right, here's what the full moon looks like. Sun is at 4 Taurus, moon 4 Scorpio. All right, that's always what a full moon is. The sun is one area and the moon is exactly opposite. That's what a full moon is. And when they line up by declination, that's a full moon. That's usually a lunar eclipse. Happens every 6 months. We have lunar and solar eclipses every 6 months. So just for info, FYI, just because the news in the United States says that we're not going to have another one until, decades from now, that's visually here in the United States true. But we have a solar eclipse every 6 months. We have a lunar eclipse every 6 months. Always. We're out of that season now, but I did tell you about that, and I'll show you those charts in a minute. So what I want us to look at with this full moon in Scorpio, excuse me, what is Scorpio about? Scorpio is asking us to dive deep. This is intense, the moon in Scorpio. Now it's a full moon. Full moons bring everything to the table so we can see everything. What is on your mind? What has been going down deep? Scorpio does not like to be exposed like that. It doesn't. It wants to keep its secrets. It wants to keep things hidden. It wants to keep things private. However, once a year when we have a full moon in Scorpio, it's asking us to bring things to the surface. Now, you don't have to do this in the public eye, but it is asking you, and now we will see this in the public, so collectively we'll see this. Just watch the news. Things are being revealed like you wouldn't believe, one thing after another after another. And if 18 months ago, when we had the new moon solar eclipse at 2 degrees of Scorpio, and today's this full moon on the screen here, the full moon is at 4 degrees of Scorpio, then you look back 18 months, we were still in the midst of a lot of COVID stuff and a lot of things just starting to come to the surface around a lot of things there. And of course, the political situation all over the world is just absolutely effed up. And so, those are Scorpio things. Secrets around any of these big issue things are coming to the surface. Now, that's not your gig. That's fine. You don't have to pay attention to those things. Take it to a personal level. I want you, the depths of Scorpio is for you and me to transform and to move towards a better you, to evolve. We don't want to stay stagnant. It's important not to stay stagnant. It's important to evolve. So when we have this full moon and Pluto squaring, as a square, let me get back to that chart. Here we are with Pluto as a square to the sun and the moon. It's really an intense position. Let me get rid of all of these things so you can actually see everything I want you to see. Oh, I want Saturn back. There's Jupiter, there's Mars, there's Venus, there's Mercury. Here's the 4 that we're talking about today. Okay. Yeah, that looks funny over there in the aspectarian. That's what the full moon looks like without all the other stuff in there. And then here's Pluto halfway. It's only off by 2 degrees. You can see that 2 degrees. And Saturn's right there too. Yeah. Oh, am I sharing the right screen? Yes, I am. Good. Wasn't sure. Excellent. That's what this looks like. And so with Pluto, the ruler of Scorpio, halfway between these two, it's really, really profoundly asking us to make some changes. Some of these changes come through personal struggles and, personal struggles, emotions that are coming up that we don't want to think and talk about. And I want you to process this. Do your work. We have so many opportunities here to work through what is important, what we need to process and release and let go of. Like here in the Northern Hemisphere now, it's spring. I'm in New Hampshire, so there's still a little snow on the ground. I think the 2 inches of rain we got yesterday wiped most of it out. But now's the time to clean. And that's what the Scorpio, and I'm going to give you this example, the Scorpio full moon brings things to light. Like all of the things are uncovered now that are dead and yucky and dying, like leaves that never got moved. Time to clean the things out, time to clean things out now that spring is here, because whoever made their winter bed and those leaves is gone now. Yay. Thank you for not blowing them away in the fall when they needed it. But I know, but that's the process. It's a whole natural process. If we don't stay in sync with what the natural process is, we feel unease and out of sync and uncomfortable. So when we have this full moon in Scorpio and it's asking us to look at what we don't want to look at so we can bring things to the surface and so we can heal and evolve. That's the main reason, the main purpose of all of this. This is mainly what it comes down to. So when we have that, now let me grab that chart one more time. So we have that Pluto to that. Now we also have simultaneously, and then I'll get to the lunar gestation cycle in a minute, But we simultaneously have Saturn and Pluto in this semi-sextile. Is it a semi-sextile? Semi-square. It's a semi-square. That means 45 degrees. Okay. And when we have these planets at 45 degrees, this creates a lot of stress and tension. Saturn and Pluto, ages ago, it was the beginning of the pandemic and all of the stressors that came from that. They're 45 degrees away from each other now. Okay. And it is uncomfortable. This is where we can really feel edgy. Now, Saturn moves slow enough because it's the faster planet. Saturn moves slow enough where we're going to feel this for a few weeks on either side of this full moon, April 23rd. So really, I'm going to say most of April and probably halfway or so into May. And later on, Saturn retrogrades back. So we'll talk about that when that happens in the daily shorts that I do over on YouTube or here on YouTube. Depends on where you're listening to me. So that is the reasoning behind do your work, bring it to the surface. If you're feeling it while you're watching this, I put this out about 10 days ahead of time, something in that range. And I want you to pay attention to what's coming to the surface and what needs to be processed, examined, lanced, healed. Okay. That's what we need to do. That's more than anything. So there's that piece. Yay. Hope that makes sense. We're working on it. And you can add something extra to this for your own personal self by discovering where 4 degrees of Taurus and 4 degrees of Scorpio are in your own chart. You can discover where that is, and that will give you more personal insight. Okay. And of course, Pluto isn't moving too far. He's going from 2 degrees back to 29 Capricorn, and he'll end the year like at 1 degree. So Pluto's only moving like 2-3 degrees for the whole year. So he's not going too far. So hopefully you know where that is. And you're doing your Scorpio work. You're doing your Pluto work. This full moon is really going to be helpful for that. Okay. Excuse me a second. There we are. A little cough. Now, let's get on to the lunar gestation cycle. Now, the lunar gestation cycle, every new moon starts a 3-year cycle that comes through in 9-month increments. I sure should have got something to drink, huh? Let me hit pause. Much better. Where was I? Let's come back to this chart. There we are. New moon, solar eclipse, 2 degrees of Scorpio. Super important. This is when the current lunar gestation cycle started. Yeah, that's where I was. Every lunar gestation cycle starts with a new moon, and this one happened to be a solar eclipse. It was 18 months ago, and this is really significant. So I want you to look back to this date that's in the top left-hand corner. That was October 25th, 2022, when we had a new moon solar eclipse at 2 degrees of Scorpio. The full moon that this forecast is about is at 4 degrees of Scorpio, and it's 18 months from this new moon solar eclipse. That means they're connected. So the whole purpose and the whole cycle of this, again, it's written out on my blog. The whole purpose of looking at this is for you to pay attention to what was initiated back then. Now, I know not everybody who listens to these things at all have any interest in setting goals every single month around every new moon, but I would absolutely ask you to, you don't have to set goals, but if you want to, please do. That's because this new moon at 2 degrees of Scorpio, look, Venus is right there too. So there was something relationship related, relationship oriented. Scorpio is also about joint finances. I have failed to mention that earlier, didn't I? It's about joint finances and resources. It's not about the money you earn, but it's about the resources you have. And so it started 18 months ago, right in here. So this is the subject matter. Again, don't be concerned with the house placement of this because we all live in different areas on the world. So the house placement is not significant in this situation. It is if we can talk about you and compare it to your chart where you live. Okay, that aside, the general forecast of this is that when we had this new moon solar eclipse, October 25th, 2022, we were initiating something, something was beginning. Again, relationship oriented around evolution, evolving a relationship to another level, as well as other Scorpio things, of course, which is what I just mentioned, resources, shared resources, spousal resources, things like that. It's not the money you earn, it's all the shared things that that come together in relationships. Okay. 9 months after that, and I will show you the whole pattern altogether at the end of this. We have the sun at 2 Leo and the moon at 2 Scorpio. So there's that same number. And this was July 25th, 2023. So you look at that point in time and look at what was initiated back in October 2022. And again, even if you don't initiate something intentionally, at least blog about how you're feeling, journal. I mean, you can blog too, but it's Scorpio, so it's going to be more personal. So I would recommend you journal and you lock it up, because you can have journaled about some very deep, important things to you. I say deep, dark, secretive, something nobody else wants to, you don't want anybody else to see or hear or read. It's those kind of deep things. We all have a dark side. We all have something that's very deep within us. And we all want to grow and evolve. Maybe not everybody, but maybe you guys are listening. So you do. You want to grow and evolve and expand. And that's what the Scorpio lunar events are about. So to have that new moon in Scorpio, that was a solar eclipse, October 25th, 2022. We now have 9 months later, the first quarter moon on July 25th, 2023. This is where we're building and we're working hard towards whatever it was we initiated 9 months ago at that new moon. And then again, we're back to here. And this is the full moon. Sorry, I don't have everything in it, but this is the full moon in Scorpio on April 23rd, 2024. And this is when we get to see what we have accomplished in the last 18 months. And we'll work on that for the next 9 months. Just that one subject, right? Where is the deep transformation happening? Is it in a relationship? Is it in finances, joint finances, or the deep shamanic work that the deep shamanic work that you're working on? I've got allergies. That's what's going on here. All right. So that's what that represents. Now, let me go see if I have anything else that I want to say about this. So yeah, let me just culminate. Let me give you my culmination of things. So finally, here we are back to that full moon lunar eclipse, bringing us to the culmination of everything we've been working on for the last 18 months. Yeah, I already said that. So there we are. Okay, that's not what I wanted. Let me get my share one more time. And I want to show you how everything looks. Let's see if I can do this properly. There we are. I'm going to do, that's my notes. I made some SEO. Oh, there's my desktop. Yeah, you get to see all my stuff today. No. I'm just kidding. I'm going to do, let's view a tri-wheel, okay? And we're going to do the new moon first, the first quarter second, and then today's full moon in Scorpio. And I just want you to see, you can see where Saturn's been, but we don't need Saturn in there today. So let's, in this forecast, so let's get Saturn out of there now. I don't mind Pluto being in there. So this is all three of those events. So you can physically see that the moon is within a few degrees of itself at every lunar event. So if we're looking at just a month, this represents 1 week's time frame. A new moon, first quarter, full moon, last quarter, back to the new moon. But in the lunar gestation cycle, it stays within a few degrees of where it began on that new moon. And that gives us an opportunity to work on something, work on a cycle, work on a plan that is has some longevity to it and some time where we could actually accomplish something, because it sure is hard to accomplish something really within any depth in a week, or in a 2-week period, or even in a month period. New moon back to the next new moon, it's like it doesn't work that fast for me. you know it's fast food, but and those quick shorts are great, but the longer, slower process that's going on is this. And this starts every new moon. So we have multiple of them happening at the same time, but that's okay, because sometimes we are interested in certain things and other things we aren't. So it's like a spider's web. There's a lot going on simultaneously. And so I want you to pay attention to that. So you can see there's the new moon. Let's do it with my finger. This is the first quarter because they're at 90 degrees. And here is today's full moon right opposite. And look at Pluto hasn't gone too far in any of those time frames. But this one, this current one, let me clear all of those out, with Pluto making a square to this, and this is really significant. Yeah. But it's also at 2 degrees, so those other ones are at 2. Lots of intensity going on here. Let me just stop my share now. We're all set with that. All right. I think that is where I want you to stop, to slow down, and to pay attention to those dates just presented. They're in the written forecast as well. I'll put them in the show notes underneath in the whatever it's called. Call it a show. I'll put them in the notes below so you can see that too. I want you to process this. I want you to take that time and really process. So as we're getting, again, I'll post this a few days early. So as we're getting closer and closer to April 23rd's full moon in Scorpio, you have opportunities to step back if you want and say, what am I processing? What did need to happen? What does need to happen? What is coming to the surface? Full moons present us with everything we need to see. And what do I need to continue to process? And what do I need to let go of so I can evolve and transform? That is the ultimate request of this full moon in Scorpio. And guys, thank you so much. And for those of you, when you get to see this, if it's not on Patreon, come and join us over on Patreon. We do a lot of in-depth content like this regularly, not just the full moon. All right, take good care. Namaste.